Ethan Cole had learned to wield silence long before he learned to wield power. At 30, he was Lagos's most enigmatic billionaire, a man who didn't need to speak to dominate a room. He walked through boardrooms in impeccably tailored suits, his presence heavier than the gold on his wrist. In a city where wealth screamed through convoys and ostentation, Ethan whispered. His silence wasn't weakness, it was armor. He had mastered the art of being present without explanation, visible yet unknowable. And in the world of Golden Core Holdings, Lagos' leading diamond export firm, Ethan was both king and ghost, the kind of man whose name was mentioned only after doors were closed. Despite his immense wealth, influence, and the endless speculation surrounding him, Ethan never felt compelled to correct public opinion. He had no Instagram, no tabloid scandals, no high-profile lovers. People whispered theories instead. Was he celibate? Gay? In hiding? The louder the rumors grew, the quieter he became. He wasn't ashamed, he was protected. Ethan had seen love twist into violence too often to trust its promises. He had watched his own mother wither in the name of loyalty. He knew too well how passion could rot into possession. So he stayed away. From entanglements, from vulnerability, from anything that could bruise what little peace he had built for himself. What the world didn't know was that Ethan had grown up behind gilded gates and blood-stained tiles. His father, Chief Douglas Cole, had ruled the family with fists and fear. A tyrant dressed in agbada and expensive cologne, Douglas believed power was proven through cruelty, especially to those closest. Ethan's mother, Elizabeth, had been beautiful, educated, and fragile beneath the weight of marriage, to a man who saw love as ownership. Every silence in their Victoria Island mansion was a warning. Every clink of a glass, a trigger. Ethan learned to tiptoe around danger before he could spell his own name. His silence wasn't just a habit, it was inheritance. The house Ethan grew up in was grand enough to impress senators, but behind its marble floors and chandeliered halls lived a nightmare no guest could see. His mother, Elizabeth Cole, wore her pain like perfume, soft, subtle, and designed to mask the truth. She had once been lively, a university valedictorian who dreamed of building schools for girls in rural Nigeria. But by the time Ethan was old enough to recognize emotion, her laughter had disappeared, replaced by cautious smiles and swollen lips hidden behind foundation. Chief Douglas Cole ran the household with an iron will and a leather belt. His cruelty didn't shout, it whispered through bruises, broken silence, and locked doors. Ethan was 7 when he saw his mother bleed. It was the night he woke up thirsty and wandered through the hallway. He heard muffled sobs behind the study door. He leaned in, and through the crack, he saw her on the floor, blouse torn, lip bleeding, and his father standing above her, breathing like a predator. That image branded itself into his soul. Not just the violence, but the confusion. How could a man hurt someone he claimed to love? The next morning he asked her, "Why didn't you leave?" Her answer was soft but devastating. "Because I love you, and because if I leave, they'll say I failed." It was then Ethan learned that sometimes women stayed not out of love, but out of fear of shame. That night, Ethan made a silent vow, a child's fragile but unbreakable promise. I will never be the reason someone cries like that. Not ever. That vow became his compass. Even after his father died from a heart attack when Ethan was 22, the fear never left him. And when his mother passed 3 years later quietly, her heart finally giving up, he buried her with tears only the grave saw. The world saw a billionaire. But inside, Ethan was still that boy standing at a door he couldn't open, watching someone he loved break and bleed in silence. Love to him was dangerous, so he buried it, deep. Rain fell hard against the glass walls of Cole Holdings Tower, blurring the lights of Lagos into smudged ribbons of golden gray. High above the city in his private lounge on the top floor, Ethan sat alone. The room, like him, was minimalist and immaculate black leather sofas, glass coffee table, muted art, a fortress of control. Ethan sipped his coffee slowly, the silence humming like a familiar companion. He liked moments like these unbothered, untouched. But that night the stillness was broken. At 8:47 p.m., the intercom buzzed. "Sir," Benjamin's voice came through, crisp and hesitant. "Greg is here. He looks bad." Gregory Langston had been Ethan's only real friend since university. They'd met as roommates. Ethan, guarded and silent. Greg, loud, charismatic, and a magnet for chaos. Somehow they had balanced each other. Greg never pried, and Ethan never judged. Over the years, their bond endured despite the widening gap in status. But as Greg stumbled into the penthouse that night, soaked in sweat and rain, eyes bloodshot, shirt clinging to his trembling frame, Ethan saw not the friend from university, but a man running from wolves. Greg collapsed into a chair, breathing like he had sprinted from hell. "I messed up," he whispered, voice cracking. "I borrowed money. Too much. From the wrong people." Ethan didn't react, not visibly. No gasp, no fury. Just quiet calculation. "How much?" he asked. Greg wiped his face with shaky hands. 80 million naira. I thought I could flip it. Reinvest. I was desperate. But now they want it back. 6 days. They've threatened my family." Silence fell, thick as fog. Ethan stood, walked to the window, rain cascading behind him like a curtain. Then his voice low, measured. "I'll give you the money." Greg exhaled with relief until Ethan added, "But I want something in return." Greg blinked. "What?" Ethan turned, his eyes like iron. "Your sister, Claire. I want to marry her." Clare Langston opened her modest flat's door on the outskirts of Yaba to find her older brother standing there, soaked to the bone, collar turned up, and panic written into the lines of his face. He hadn't called, hadn't sent a single text. But she knew this look. It wasn't the Greg who told jokes at family brunches or who sent her late-night voice notes about bad dates. This was the Greg who was in trouble, the version of him that always walked in when life was about to change. "I need to talk to you," he said, stepping inside like the walls themselves would collapse if he didn't. She poured him tea while he sat at the edge of her couch, twitching nervously. "You remember Ethan Cole?" he asked. "Your mysterious billionaire best friend?" she replied dryly. "The one that looks like a Wall Street vampire and never blinks?" Greg didn't laugh. "He wants to marry you." The cup nearly slipped from Claire's hand. "What?" "He said it clearly," Greg said, forcing himself to meet her eyes. "He wants to marry you. No games, no explanation. He's serious." Claire sat down slowly, her breath caught in her throat. "I haven't seen him in years. What does he even know about me?" Greg shook his head. "He remembers you, the way you spoke to him that Christmas, the way you looked at him like he was normal." Claire studied her brother carefully. His hands trembled slightly. His voice, too calm, betrayed his desperation. She knew Greg. She had cleaned up after his financial messes before. Something deeper was going on, something he wasn't saying. "This isn't about love, is it?" she asked. "No," Greg admitted. "It's about survival. Mine. Maybe yours too." She felt the ground shift beneath her. Marriage was never a dream Claire held tightly, and certainly not with a man like Ethan Cole. But then again, neither was watching her only family be destroyed by his own recklessness. She stared at the wall, heartbeat drumming. "Tell him I'll consider it." But inside, she already knew she was going to say yes. The suite at the Belvoir Hotel in Ikoyi smelled like cedarwood and restraint. Claire stepped in wearing a simple navy blue dress, her hands clenched at her sides, unsure of how to carry herself in the presence of a man who had once been a quiet observer at her brother's birthday dinner and now wanted to become her husband. Ethan stood by the window, dressed in a black tailored suit without a tie, his posture sharp, unreadable. The Lagos skyline stretched out behind him, all glass and tension. "Claire," he said, his voice smooth, unhurried, "thank you for coming." She tilted her head slightly, meeting his gaze with careful neutrality. "You didn't exactly leave me with many options." Ethan didn't flinch. "I never force. You chose to come. That means something." She walked slowly into the room, the silence growing heavier with each step. "Why me?" she asked. "You don't know me. We spoke what, 3 times?" Ethan turned from the window. But you looked at me, not through me. That night at Greg's birthday, everyone saw the myth. You saw a man eating suya alone in the corner. Claire blinked, caught off guard by his honesty. That's your reason for proposing? He shrugged slightly. I want peace, and I believe you carry it. The deal was laid out with Ethan's usual precision. No media, no church fanfare, a civil ceremony, quiet and clean. Everything from the location to the wardrobe would be handled by his team. Claire only had to say yes, and she did. Not out of romance or fantasy, but out of instinct, a deep, quiet belief that Ethan, cold as he seemed, would never harm her. When she left the suite, she did so with a calm she didn't understand. She wasn't walking into a love story. She was stepping into a contract. But some contracts, she reminded herself, changed lives more than vows ever could. The story continues. We'd love to hear from you. What did you think about Ethan and Claire's journey? Was it love, strategy, or something in between? Did the silence speak louder than words for you? Drop your thoughts, theories, or favorite moments in the comments below. Let's talk about the kind of love that doesn't shout, but still shakes the world. If you enjoyed this story and want more deeply emotional, African-rooted, character-driven narratives, don't forget to subscribe for upcoming releases and exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Subscribe now to be part of this storytelling journey. There's more where this came from, and trust us, you won't want to miss it.